such a conference would be inconclusive without having a chapter dedicated to defense industry, even though you may have noticed that in all speeches there was always reference to defense industry. And this is just because there is a reality. No matter the aspirations of the governments and also the military plans of the armed forces, without a strong, innovative and competitive national and European defense industry, nothing is possible to happen. I will not do it by myself. I will be accompanied and supported by four very experienced and distinguished members of the defense industry community. And I invite to the floor Mr. Giuseppe Cossiga, President of the Federation of Italian Companies for Aerospace, Defense and Security in Italy. Mr. Jörg Sorg, appointed representative from the German security and defense industry. Welcome, Jörg. Mr. Jean-Marie Dumon, Deputy Director, Head of Defense and Security from the French Maritime Industry Association. And Mr. Anastasios Rozolis, President of SEKPY, the association in Greece of the Hellenic manufacturers for Hellenic defense material. So welcome and thank you for being with us today. We are all aiming to capitalize on your experience and the wisdom on the sector. You may have noticed that I made reference to your association-wise title, not the companies, but feel free to discuss about your experiences also that you have from your own companies today. I am supposed to set the scene before we start. I don't think for this specific conference this is going to be something very difficult. Why? Because the reality sets the scene. In Europe, we are experiencing in our borders huge challenges, especially with the two ongoing wars, which are causing, of course, a lot of losses of lives and damages and humanitarian challenges. EU and the member states are very involved, especially in the war in Ukraine. And we have heard also the different activities which are ongoing in support of Ukraine. At the same time, we have the member states that they are increasing speedily their activities to support security and defense. First of all, by increasing their budgets. Also by increasing their appetite to cooperate. And of course, by applying also an external policy which is trying to align with the defense and security defense challenges of Europe. At the same time, EU also is developing now a lot of activities. We just have heard from Sylvia the package of the European Defense Industrial Strategy and the associated program. This is to complement a number of other activities at DIRPA and TDF and other activities, the European, the EPF. I remember when we have started talking about defense in Europe, we were making jokes about NATO with all these acronyms, and now we are full of acronyms in Europe as well. So voila, welcome to the reality. Let's set the rules of the discussion. You will all have 5 minutes time to make a statement. What I suggest, since you are all representing a national defense industry association, it would be very interesting for the audience to listen to how industries in your countries are experiencing the situation and the access to the markets. And then we will follow this with a horizontal question about your perception about the EU initiatives and how this reflects. And then we will continue the discussion. My plan is if we can leave some time to the audience at the end to have some time to put some questions. So please try to keep the time and also to be short and crispy in the answers. So allow me to start with Mr. Rozolis, and then we will go to the reverse side. So, Tasso.
Thank you, Vasilis. I would like to thank the audience for their patience to stay till the time to listen to us. I would like to give the characteristics of the Greek of Hellenic defense industry. Hellenic defense industry is mainly an MRO industry, maintenance, repair, overall, services industry, and subcontracting. And of course, we have some diamonds, some medium companies, which we can say that they are world leaders, but not for big systems like airplanes or ships. That is very important in order to understand what is Hellenic defense industry, what we can offer to Hellenic defense forces, and what we expect from our government and the policy in order to enlarge and grow the defense industry. What I mean by that? Our main, as I said in the morning, our main target is the demand of getting at least 30% of the procurements. And this 30% should be in the form, we call it industrial returns. That means we want to be part of this, in the subcontracting of the system. We would like to be in the supply chain, in the international supply chain of the international companies, because we all know that the company cannot survive if we just want to live with the Greek Defense Forces procurements. Something which is very important, and the army people will understand here, is that I don't know if many people know that, for example, for an airplane, the cost of its operational life is 3 to 4 times the cost of the purchase. That means that even if we cannot be with a substantial percentage in the subcontracting, by getting a serious portion of the follow-on support, something which is also a win-win situation with the manufacturing company, that means that we can have the security of supply for the Hellenic Defense Forces in a period of crisis, and also we can have our own Greek people and companies involved. So this 30% can be a game changer in order the Greek industry to grow. And also, by being part of the supply chain, it means that then we will encourage and enlarge our synergies with the big producers of defense systems. So, I think that the aim of the Hellenic defense industry should be to be a partner in all the international projects. For example, we saw today the new European, the future combat aircraft, the future frigate, the future corvette, the future tank. This is, for our country, a country of 11 million people, that should be the aim. So, looking, for example, countries in our size, like Israel, it doesn't make sense to produce our own airplane, but it is very important that we can support the airplane and in the same time that we can make and produce in Greece certain strategic systems homemade in Greece that will help our armed forces in the period of crisis to overcome the difficulties. Thank you, Vasilis.
No, thank you. And the famous life cycle cost and how this can be reflected in the procurement, it's something which even bigger countries, they are trying in their, to achieve in their defense procurement process. It's not that easy, always. And the second is related to security of supply. It's interesting that 20 years ago, when we were discussing about the Defense and Security Procurement Directive, it was difficult to convince the Commission why security of supply is important. Now, if you go through the text of the European Defense Industry Strategy, the same arguments are used from the European perspective why we need to make sure that in Europe we produce strategic capabilities. So, Jean-Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vasileios, and thank you very much to SEKPY and ROTA to invite our association to intervene today So GICAN is the French Maritime Industry Association, and I will speak also for Europe, the Shipyards and Maritime Equipment Association in Europe, because it's a European conference.
Absolutely.
And I want first to express my gratitude to Mr. Miltiadis Varvitsiotis, the chairman of Scaramanga Shipyard, to describe frankly the situation of our maritime and naval industry in Europe today. And I will focus on this industry aspect. We are in a real turning point, in my point of view, in a time when we hear a so-called war economy words, and we need a real sovereign industry in the maritime and naval domain. We need a duality approach, a dual approach in our industry. We are both engaged in also, of course, the commercial shipbuilding industry, but also the renewable energy at sea topics, the civil nuclear activities, and so on. And also more and more cooperation with allies and partners more than ever. And is there any future for our industry in Europe? That's the key point for naval and maritime industry, because there's a chance to still have in Europe the technological leadership in the maritime and the naval domain, in the both civilian part and military part. We are the backbone of blue economy in Europe. We are the backbone of waterborne transport policy and realization, and also in naval defense. We are able to build in Europe complex ships, maritime, and to manufacture maritime equipment. We have cross-fertilization between commercial and naval shipbuilding. In the US, they haven't. They have a huge domestic market in the military domain, but no civilian shipbuilding activities anymore. We are capable to deliver sustainable and digitalized solutions in our sector. And also, we have innovative maritime know-how and jobs. Still we have. But we have many challenges. We have, the world has changed. And as explained the chairman of Scaramanga Shipyard, we are facing a decline, a real decline of Europe's commercial shipbuilding sector. It seriously jeopardizes naval shipbuilding in general, because we have intertwined supply chain and know-how between the civilian market and the military market. We are only in the civilian part in a niche market, facing the rise of Chinese industry and the strong South Korean and Japanese industry. And if we look to the Navy ships built by regions in the world in value, we see that all Asia with Russia is more than 60% of the products in the military domain. The North America is still at 20%, and Europe at 13%. And we also see aggressive industry outside European Union, with, for example, South Korea. Anwar Hossain, ex-DSME company, will invest $1.5 billion to develop offers on the European market in Poland, for example, in Middle East, in Canada, and far away from the Asian traditional market. If we see what happened in Turkey, many shipyards and equipment companies reinforce actions with a huge presence in international exhibition, with state heads, specific state heads for that, and they have new contracts in Africa, in Asia, so it's challenging emerging countries in our industry too. China targets Europe's remaining maritime global leadership, and South Korea take action to become a real global leader in sustainable and digitalized shipbuilding, even in the naval domain, because they invest first by budget of defense ministry in a decarbonization solution for the navies. So we must open eyes And the world has changed, we know that. And we have to de-risk supply chains. It's vital for Europe's strategy autonomy. And shipbuilding has become an economy security risk for the European Union. We have horizontal EU policies and legislation, but they have largely failed to turn the tide. And we call to EU policymakers for a real maritime industrial strategy with game-changing measures. We present this plan recently in Brussels. Made in Europe, Maritime Industry Act, to help technological leadership to be there, and also communication around skilled workforce. I don't want to take too long time, but just we speak after about all the European tools,
Absolutely.
like PESCO, EDF, EDIS, and EDIP specifically, but about war economy. Just 2 words. War economy, first, is economy policy. It's not inside, Ministry of Defense and Defense industry. It's a real economy policy we need, and to take into account long cycles in the naval domain. So no short-term misuse for that. And the only way is to increase investment in dual industrial infrastructure and boost both commercial and military products. Think long-term, better cooperation, and consolidation will appear if it's no sense to imposing it if we have not coordinated orders from member states for that. Yes, so we
Thank
have
you.
more
No,
work
yes,
to discuss on.
we will have also the opportunity to discuss also the European perspective. I just want to highlight the key message, the cross-fertilization between civil and military. And since one of my main activities in my job is to support companies to access funding, not only for defense, I can tell you that the shipping sector now is changing, is changing because they have, due to the fact that they are bound to the ETS process, and there is also possibility to access EU funding. But the main challenge they face is that the main capacities for ships of that tonnage are outside EU. And if you want to construct something outside EU, you cannot be funded. So it's a kind of a contradictory message. Anyhow, Jörg, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. And by the way, I have to mention, as I'm a high fan of architectural stuff, we're in the building that is fantastic. You have a landmark here, and you should really be proud of that. Let me say that. No, let me give you some background that you can put later my statements in the right box. My background is an Air Force officer, and I joined the Air Force in '84, which means Cold War times. And I was deep involved in German reunification on my military side and left as part of my career, and then went to industry in '95. From that day on, I was in air defense, ground-based air defense, aircraft air defense, and it was part of my responsibility to hopefully achieve some success in European program, international programs. At that time I was 30, and my expectation was that it would be quite easy, so that everybody would wait to see how things could be improved. We had a lesson learned after all these bad experiences, but quite the opposite happened. The situation in Germany, and I promised to give you a German insight, was that each and everyone said, hey guys, you told us now we have peace forever. Why don't we need anything? And for us, I can tell you, it was a must-have to go international, to really go to companies and find suppliers. Even the most supportive part in the German procurement agency at that time, and they were smart guys, they said, listen, to give you one example that fits perfectly here to Greece and to the Hellenic armed forces, when we started after the findings of the Russian MiG-29 missiles at that time, the IRIS-T program, out of nothing, to be candid with you, the Germans said, you will get 50% of the money from the German budget, but the rest is up to you to collect it around Europe. And guess in which country, for instance, we were. And I listened quite carefully when in this morning somebody said with a sad feeling, obviously, they would love to see not just to be a producer in Greece, but also to be an R&D partner, a development partner, and then, of course, also production partner. Ladies and gentlemen, we did exactly this with the support of the government. You did it as a country, and you were, by the way, the very first in the end of the 90s to sign the MOU, a six-nation MOU. And the idea was, and that's still a program type I recommend to go this way, have a kind of cost share equal work share. So just a minor part of the money may cross the borders, go to a company, whether it's Diehl or another company, doesn't care, so that in country here with the Greek partners, you build up a basis, and that's very important from my point of view, that will survive election periods, that will survive change in government, so that you have for quite some time stable condition. And yes, we succeeded in that, and still today, Hellenic Defense System, Intracom, HIA, they all are in the program. And it's fair to share this community here, and we are really proud, together with them, today with the ground-based air defense system based on that missile technology elaborated in that program, we defend Kiev. And in all and each and every missile there, you have your Greek participation. It's probably became too normal. Nobody's talking about it. So my expectation today is after this horrible war starts and when things changed also in Germany and people understood we had really to do more to help industry, by the way, to have a stable planning basis that in the society, by the way, we had a need for a mind change, which was mentioned before this morning as well, that we have access to finance. I may give you, to conclude that part, I may give an indication. When you grew up, as I did, in these international programs without EU support, which was normal at that time, and then you learn one of the very first things EU did to me, and I have my pride in being an officer, and I will have it until the day I die, I know that. Suddenly I learned that by taxonomy, as an armed forces person, I was rated close to prostitutes. I'm not kidding. And when I first learned about that, I said, something is wrong. And you have to be aware of the fact that that meant at that time, and you know the story for sure, that the banks were forced, know your customer, know your client. Oh, with these dirty guys, don't get together with them. And we're a family-owned company as Diehl, and typically try to be independent, but nevertheless, when programs reach a certain size, you had to go to banks simply to protect the cases and the contracts. And believe it or not, very reputable banks declined, before the war starts, by the way, to work with us. Today, things is completely different. So I'm waiting for the discussion how and if EU regulation could help us, but I truly believe there is still a long way to go.
Yeah. I will come back with a question on that because this is interesting. About the venue, the praise goes to the organizers who have selected. And yes, this is what I wanted to say, that the approach is changing as regards the access to financing. We had a joint statement of the ministers as well as a message to the banks. We had also the MOU between the EIF and the DGTFIS, and things are going well also on that part, but I hope that we will have some more insights from your side. So Giuseppe, also, now since you had also a passing from the political side, so maybe you can share with us from both sides the experience.
I'm an aerospace engineer.
Okay.
It was a brief time in the institution and also at the Ministry of Defense. Now, a few words on the Italian industry. As you know, in Italy, we have a couple of very big companies, mainly Leonardo and Fincantieri, and more than 300 of small and medium enterprises. The big ones are controlled by the government, by the states. We are important for Italy, 2% of GDP, about slightly less than 3% of exports. But we are the single more important sector as regards research and development. Now, the situation nowadays, things have changed after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. our armed forces, I think it's the same for everybody else, realized that either they didn't have the instruments or what they had was too few, too late. So now the government, the military forces are asking the industry to provide new stuffs and more of what we have provided in the last year. And this is the main problem, because time is something we cannot buy, and so we let alone time. We have no time, and we have to find solution. But to find a solution, at least from the point of view of industry, you need a couple of things. You really need them. The first thing, I know it's not polite, it's money. Because with no money, there is nothing. The Roman used to say, pecunia nervus belli. With no money, there is no more, there is nothing. I'm not talking about profits, I'm talking about money. And when you talk money to politics, it's difficult because the budget is always complicated to change. We have the financial issues, we have many other problems. You are not my priority, but no money, nothing. The second point is that we need, if you cannot give me the money, at least an engagement. Politicians are very, very good in using words, but in a speech, in talking. When you have to write and sign, that's a difficult matter. But we, industry, we need an engagement, a long term. I can even accept the money in 20 years, provided I have a good piece of paper in my hands. And this is still a problem. We have received from the Italian government a lot of questions, a lot of, let's say, requirements, but we have not seen a single euro, not a single piece of paper yet. And then there is another major point. For the last 60 years, we have been told to cooperate, to build the future on cooperation, mainly European cooperation. Okay, I am from MBDA, so cooperation is in my DNA. But at that time, cooperation was France, Italy, Germany, and the United Kingdom. So we managed to create a cooperation, and now it has become a problem. It is not really, it's tricky. You asked me to create a cooperation, and now you are telling me this cooperation is a problem. So it's not very fair. But cooperation means that other countries are involved. So I am MBDA. If Italy is asking me for ground-based air defense missiles, and France is asking MBDA for air-to-air missile, we are going to have a problem. So first try to find a common requirement, then find the money, and then send me a paper, and everything will go fine. Thank you.
That's good. Very good point. Okay, so let's go now on the reverse order. I would like from all of you your expectations, your views about all these European initiatives, which are were presented also by Silvia today, and you know very well as the EDIS and also EDIP and how the European Defence Fund works. We had also last year the calls of the ASAP, and I think it was a very good process, and there is a plan for a follow-up to that. There is a European armaments program which is planned, so I would like to listen from you your expectations, but I would like to add to each and every one of you a more specific topic where you could focus as well. So, Giuseppe, okay, the European initiatives, but if I go back, because I am following the European defense 20 years now, so if I go back to 2005, 2006, and then when I joined DDA, we were inviting the Commission to come to some meetings, and it was just no go. Maybe, Silvia, you experienced also this period. Then they started complaining, why you don't invite us to this and to that? After the December 2013 Heads of States Council, after the Libya crisis, that they decided. So Commission, it was the first time that they started saying, there is something also for me. And now, of course, they are leading, and Commission, I think, is doing a very good job, and there is a very positive impact, and we have a lot of initiatives and money all of them, of course, subject to member states' decisions. Do you think that you know each other well? I mean, the defense industry, the defense world, with the Commission's world. Do you think that you need to meet?
Things have evolved in better, and this is a major point. Now, of course, we don't know one another very well because we have not been working for a very long time. And then there is another point, 2 points. One, we have seen the presentation of EDA. Europe is the Commission, but it is also the Council. So, in Europe, we are sometimes very effective, never very easy to do things, but okay. Now, at the Commission level, this is the feeling of the Italian industry, they are very used to industry that works in a market. So what is a market? The market is a noisy place with people shouting, my eggs are better, I am less expensive, this kind of stuff. As an executive of military industry, of defense industry, I don't think I am somebody working in a market. I feel myself something like a tailor. I am called by the prince, and the prince asks me, I need a new robe for the big ball. It can be very expensive, but you do it. You prepare it, and I'm happy. Sometimes the same prince sends me to another prince. You are allowed to prepare a robe for him, but only if my prince agrees. And no, at European level, it's the same. In the Council, it is like that. There are many, many princes. Now, the Commission, I'm joking, of course, as you know, they think they are the emperor. So when we go there, they explain things, and they don't understand that even if they've got the money, I still work for the prince. So this is the major point. There is a long way to do for both of us. We have no time, so we'll have to work on it. But please be aware, I still work for the prince who's sitting on the other side of the building. Okay.
Ah, so you work for the prince. Okay, just to know that we have a very good connection. Okay, so Jörg, I grabbed the opportunity from what you mentioned about the RST. I was involved in the involvement of Greece at that time. And all the EU initiatives are promoting cooperation. So member states to work together, to procure together, to develop capabilities together, to join forces for research and technology together. At the same time, the member states, they are involved in multinational corporations like the RST, or they have G2G cooperations. How these two realities can coincide? So they are competitive or they are complementary? And what would be your advice to us, all the choices of the menu to be available for the member states, but without the one working against the other?
Thank you for the question. As I'm not very fond of wasting resources, I would always hope that this kind of arrangement would be complementary, so that for some programs, for instance, and I have an example where it's quite easy to understand even without going into technical stuff. When you're top of the list in a certain technology, you may have just one, if at all, two competitors in Europe. For instance, in France, they have very capable companies, no doubt about that. And at the very moment you start to enter a cooperation where part of the regulation, for instance, is that you would have to put your IPs on the desk. And even condition is okay, if not background IP, then at least the outcome of your work, and it gets delicate, because we are not free to maneuver to whom we sell, to whom we go to partner. No, we're not. We depend on a government decision. So my humble recommendation would be enable on EU level the framework so that companies, and maybe even to a higher extent, smaller, medium-sized enterprises, not the big ones, they have by far an easier access, but even for them it's an issue. so that they have access to finance, that they have similar regulations. To give you an idea, to have not an issue and disadvantage as a European company that later would have to sell in a Western approved country, that they have a disadvantage by some extra obstacles. So I would recommend, when it comes to very critical, mission critical stuff where you know, and that would be easy to communicate, where you know I have just a few players, I would tell them, you arrange your team. There might be even 2 teams. Be on a competitive basis. We will provide you the framework so that you know how you do the trades, money transfer, whatsoever. And in parallel, and that's the reason why I believe it's feasible to do it in a complementary approach, start much more than we do today, R&D, basic work, and elaborate technologies. I can share with you, we have even in industry activity, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in Italy or in France, if I stick with you as my neighbors, where we worked for more than 15 years for something super small when you now see the outcome. But it was so damn important for this missile system in Ukraine, you have no idea. So when I would have to rely on somebody that would change on an annual basis or 4 years basis, now I don't want to support it any longer, I'm lost. So my recommendation would be, focus on EU level, on core technologies that you say, I have to work on that. I use a wrong example to explain it, as if somebody 10 years ago would have said, I go for a GPS substitute. Everybody will need it, whether it's in France, a company, or in Italy, or in Germany. So we spend money on that, which brings me, by the way, to an issue that, to my surprise, was not mentioned today. And I would recommend invest in education, invest in university, in international programs. One of the big lessons learned we had was, and we were a typical South German company. I love the company, but nevertheless, it was not by their DNA an international company from their roots. The more we had international players in that, international students, the better. And they were inspiring the team. So my humble recommendation would be, in parallel to this focus on R&D work, prepare the basis that all could use these pieces you elaborate, spend a hell of a money to really have sufficient resources to feed them into the company. Whether they later work in Italy or in France or in Germany, I don't care. That would be something I would love to see.
No, thank you. It would be a disaster to have contradictory initiatives, while in all cases, the aim is to increase capabilities. And the same goes with NATO, where we talk about the famous complementarity, but still we see that there are parallel initiatives which sometimes they seem to be identical. Again, on the same topic, Jean-Marie, I would like to focus a bit on the bilateral cooperation and how this can be expanded to the European. Because I know, for example, and we know very well, and SEKPY also is aware that there is a strong Franco-Greek cooperation in the naval sector. So maybe I can call it also a best practice. And this can be the basis or the entry or the gate to a broader EU cooperation, or maybe can work vice versa. An EU cooperation can lead to a closer bilateral cooperation of 2 member states.
Yes, there are situations where bilateral cooperation is, of course, better than a more smooth but difficult multilateral situation. If we think together in a long-term approach, and it's the case in the naval domain, it's better. Because we need some political and strategical common approach. And the fact is, for the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean area, we share the same values, the same wish of stability, security, respect of international laws at sea, and protection of our values in the area. And about also an operational point of view. If our navies are sharing training, operational activities at sea, and not only Navy, but all our armed forces in sort of interoperability, it's better to imagine a huge industrial cooperation after, if you have the basis. But it's a better way to reinforce our EDTIB too, because of contracts, with the necessity of local content for all the sustainability of products during the life cycle of products. So it's not an affair between a big company and small companies. It's not only that, it's also because we have the experience, for example, and with the Bellara frigate activities now in an industrial way, we see that there are innovative industrial processes that French discover in Greece companies that they don't know before. And during the war, they discovered that. So on the French side, and I imagine it's the same on the Greek side, of course. So it's we learn of each other in the bilateral way. And it's not subcontracting, facing integratory, it's also partners. But we need also European cooperation for R&D and development. And we see in EDTIB first and after EDF, the fact that all the major shipyards in Europe are able to cooperate together in some calls. For digital ships, for example, with Sea Defense Consortium, and we have many examples like that. We are competitors in the global market, in a non-EU export, of course, between all European shipyards, but we are able to work together. It's the right way. First, R&D, common views on some digital ships and some technologies, not on all the landscape. After, common developments, after we will see for industrialization, but it depends on member states. EDF, 7 years, 8 billion on the table, R&D development, and now it's time to produce. This money is only for send or for produce after? It's a question of the new tools we appeared with EDIS and EDIP. And thank you for the Commission to write these documents, but what is the position of member states now? What can we imagine as flagships for our industries, and in particular for long-term industries like the naval industry?
So it is a matter of the bilateral and how this expands, but also how you take it from TRL level to TRL level, so as to reach to the procurement. And this maybe it's a good point for you, Tassos. Yes, we have EDF, where we have quite successful cases every year, and there are projects which are now ongoing. But to what extent these projects they aim to real capabilities? So there is always a question. Okay, all of these projects practically also they are coming from the member states, also from the industry's proposals, but many times the challenge is, but is this the future system for Europe? Is this a real capability that we can touch? And it's also related to what Jean-Marie said, that okay, we go from R&D to R&D and then to procurement. When we are going to reach this level? Is this going to be too late when we will be at this point of time ready in Europe to jointly procure European platforms?
Vasilis, thank you for that it can be provocative, the answer, not the question. We are very happy, we are honored that we have success in the EDF. But up to now, the success of EDF has almost zero impact on the real defense. Mm-hmm. It's very good for research and institutions, for universities. We know many times that when an EDF project finishes, people open sub-bains and they close it. But many of us, we represent companies, and the company every month has to pay salaries. And that means we have to sell a product. What we expect from the Commission is to promote, to sponsor the production and acquisition of defense products. A common European product that will be supported through EDF for the R&D, but we must come to the product that will be also sponsored, and especially if it's a joint procurement, as Ms. von der Leyen said, we have to spend more, we have to spend European, but we have to spend better. So we don't need 150 EDF projects, but we need 10, for example, joint venture projects for common systems in Europe. Otherwise, the defense industry, as you see now, they don't care. I mean, the simple defense industry or the usual, that they produce products. We need now to go to the next step, now that the Commission doesn't have allergy on the world defense, to make the right moves that we are going to produce products. And I would like, if I may, first of all, I'm privileged to sit in the same panel with the three giants of European defense industry. And since many officers of Hellenic armed forces are here, I would like, I don't want your answer now, but I would like to make a question. How is it possible, with the same European law, that Italy buys 80% from Italy, France 80 or 90%, Germany 80 or 90, and in Greece, even for 10% that we are trying to do, we think that there are problems with the European law. This is something that we have to discuss somehow inside Europe, because it doesn't help. The second is that whatever we say, I can tell you as owner of a company in Greece, that if you go to the biggest Greek banks and you say, I am a military producer, they say, thank you very much, Mr. Rozolis, bye-bye. And I have many times to explain that the pictures in my website, when I have Eurofighter, for example, or an F-16, no, I'm not producing their plane, I'm producing cables. And they say, okay. So what you said before is right. According to banking system, the defense industry is on the same rank like casinos and legal prostitution. If we don't resolve, no, it's reality.
It's a reality, by law in Italy.
It's a reality. It's a reality. It's not a joke. You have to prove that you are not somebody very bad who is producing defense products for your country or for Europe. So things are moving, but we need to do some very important, at least for the defense industry.
So I'm pleased that I have a friend who is a casino owner. But I think you deserve a quick answer to Tasso's question. Yes, please, let's start with something.
I just want to emphasize what Tasso just already said about the attitude of policy makers. And I hear recently the French President Macron with Sorbonne speech about European future. It was on 25th of April. Recently, he speaking about underinvestment in defense, underinvestment in defense at the European level. And he said we need a European preference for military purchasing sustained by new financing tools with contribution of EIB, European Investment Bank. Today, EIB is not able to invest directly to defense. It's not authorized.
Okay,
It's
recently there was a decision about it.
It's only a dual investment. And they emphasize today new loans, etc. French president say, okay, no. President of Lithuania in Paris in March say we must change the rule of EIB. Prime Minister of Estonia in Brussels, we heard with Tasso, with ASD conference, the same thing, and so on and so forth. But in the board of EIB is simply the Minister of Economy of the member state. Why don't they decide now to change the rule for EIB 2 years after the beginning of the war in Ukraine? That's the reality. So if EIB is giving a new signal to the private European banking system, perhaps it will change something. But it's a reality. It's a pity for that. The private investment sector and also the venture capital, they don't want to make a finger inside our affairs because it's a long term. It's not so turnover. And so on. They can't live. And governance is there's many situations we can change now. It's the affair of member state, and even in EDIS documents, the Commission said to the member state to invite to change the rule, and after the member state said to the Commission, "It's not your duty to say that," but they had to decide. And thank you for the Commission to write this inside the EDIS document.
Thank you. Okay, we expect this famous 100 billion euros for defense. Let's see if this could be a solution. But yes, it's a very valid point as regards EIB. Jörg, and then Giuseppe, and we close.
Yeah, being quite critical with the European program, it's also fair to say that we are all EU. It depends whom we send to them, what kind of guideline they get. So I don't want to pretend that we are all outside and somebody else is doing their things. This is stupid. No, but coming back to the headline we had for this panel, I would recommend and would like to encourage all decision makers in here to make use to the largest extent to encourage and help, not financially, just financially, but with your planning purpose, your national industry to build up expertise in these kind of international programs. And if I may for a second use by intention another country to give an example. In the IRIS-T program, as the insiders may know, there was in Spain, or still in Spain, the company CENER. CENER was appointed to do, based on the design we had, a control section. And right from the outset, again, we have competition with MBDA, for instance. Right from the outset, the Spanish state said, we enable CENER by this program, and hopefully by others, to have a capability for control section also for other missile programs, which led today to a situation where CENER, of course, produces also for MBDA. I may like it or not, but it's good at the end of the day. They produce for us, and they have this capability now in Spain. And you have similar things here. HDS Hellenic Defense System developed the warhead for IRIS-T, and the same warhead is still used in the surface-launched ground-based air defense system. So there are programs. So again, I like to encourage you, when your local industry tries to build up expertise, support them. And when there is any means on a European level by cooperation programs to work in a specific area to further foster this, go for that. I'm pretty sure it will work.
Giuseppe?
Just to underline once more something that for me it's obvious, and maybe because it is obvious we don't repeat it enough. There is no defense Europe without the UK. They have decided to leave the Union, okay, it's their matter. We have to find ways to keep them working with us and not to keep them out. This is a major point.
Yeah, I was involved a bit on the Brexit process, so in the security defense chapter, and I have my views as well. It was not possible to take questions from the audience, unfortunately, because of the time, but I think we had a very live discussion, and we should all give a warm applause to the panelists. Don't forget that this is the precursor of the DEFEA exhibition next year. So if this was interesting on the whole day and the event, so you can imagine what comes next year. So thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.